not out of legal reasons. You can call me Drax or Draxter. They call me that at
That's great.
immigration, also when I arrive in the U.S. Um, One time an immigration official called me Drax, and then he apologized. He thought it was my first name. Yeah,
Here.
I take no credit for it.
Okay, so thanks for everyone for coming. I thought we would just get started since it's now 2:02. I'm officially running behind. This is supposed to take 1 hour exactly, and I'm going to take a cue from Draxter's German efficiency and tiredness, and really
I'm
get
not tired.
started.
I'm
So,
totally fired up. Oh God.
welcome to the first creative forum here at Indie TP. At the creative forum, when we learn together, anything is possible. So, over the course of the 4 forums here at the festival, we're going to meet with people, we're going to talk with people, we're going to collaborate to make Second Life a better place. And I just fell because someone tried to fall into the chat.
Come back.
That's
I'll
the
be
first
back in
thing
a
that
sec.
needs to be improved. You need to be restrained. Um,
I, if only Brett could help me with that. So with each forum, we're going to have a panel of speakers and guests, and we'll be discussing an array of topics. Our community more educational, more engaging, and more exciting. So my name is Chris. You may know me as Nathaniel West here in Second Life, and I'm going to be your moderator for all 4 of these forums. Today we are happy to have Brett, Linden, and Draxtor. Is it Dupree? Dupre?
Hey, thank you. It's actually Dupree or Dupre, and people really butchered this wonderful last name, and my French ancestors are really mad. And you're the first moderator, I think, out of the gate. You pronounced it correctly, Dupre or Dupree or Dupre. Yes, yes.
Well, we're here today to talk about the ways in which Second Life offers us imaginative ways to create, to educate, to entertain us. We're going to be discussing how Second Life gives its users creative methods to imagine art, how it affords new ways of learning, and how it brings enjoyment into our lives. It does every day. So we'll be speculating into the future as well. We're going to be considering how Project Sansar might take everything we love about Second Life to the next level, which we're going to be very excited about. So, first, I want to introduce Brett Linden. He is the manager of digital content for Linden Lab. Let's see here. As my window collapses, a role that gives him many responsibilities. However, Brett has given us, the residents of Second Life, a lot of great things. He's the man behind the destination guide, which has greatly increased traffic in Second Life, and personally keeps me busy when I don't know where to go in world for something fun to do. And that's often. I often find myself going to that place and just clicking and going somewhere fun, kind of getting so. Um, Brett also co-manages all of Linden Lab's social media accounts, making sure we stand for what's happening inside. Outside of Second Life, Brett is also an associate professor and the director of education at Washington State University. He teaches courses in the latest digital convergence tools and techniques used in journalism, PR, and online media. So thank you for joining us, Brett. We
Thank you.
Draxtor, yeah, thank you. We're grateful to have Draxtor Dupree, aka Bernard Drax, creator of a fantastic series file out every series highlights some of Second Life's interesting and creative people, not only giving the viewer a look into their creative processes in Second Life, but also linking their avatar, real life person behind them, showing just how beautiful and carefully our avatars become an extension of ourselves. Drax also hosts a radio show or a podcast or interview thing. I'm not quite sure how to classify it. It's called the Drax Files Radio Hour. It broadcasts every Friday, I believe, and showcases various stories and personalities from Second Life. So while most of us sitting here have certainly, if you haven't seen Drax's work, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's insightful, it's enlightening, and it's very, very well produced. I'm always continuously impressed by it. So thank you both for being here with us today, coming to share your thoughts, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you for the Jesus Christ, these introductions. They make us seem relevant, Brett, right? And in our daily lives, when we want to buy
True.
a cup of coffee, people are sometimes not friendly.
Yeah, I'm
So
excited for
true.
this series. We've been talking. We're going to talk to a lot of people, but this is something new to the Indie TP Festival, and I think it's a really welcomed addition. We need to hear more voices from people who are creating things, and it's great to have you here. So I'd like to start off the discussion with Brett, but Drax, if you have any insights, please don't hold back. Um, you have a microphone in your hand, so I'm assuming you'll just chime in when you need to.
Oh God, yeah.
So outside of Second Life, I'm also like Brett, an educator. In fact, that is how I got into Second Life. I followed a group of educators here, hoping to develop ways to better serve my online students. And as you're an educator too, Brett, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts about how education can be more closely meshed with Second Life. So I have a few questions I'd like to really get your insights on, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
All right, question one. So that's very formal, right? Um,
Ah,
so back in the early days of Second Life, there was a time when a lot of educators, especially the early adopters of virtual worlds, they believed that Second Life offered a richer online landscape for learning. It's particularly one that I guess was linked to experiential learning. And as someone like me who teaches a lot of online courses, I still think this is the case. However, since those early adopters in the early days of Second Life, time went on, and for a variety of reasons, a lot of educators decided to leave Second Life. And I'm wondering if you have any speculation as to why you think this is. What might have happened?
yeah, I think it's a fair question, and there's been anybody who follows Second Life in the education community knows maybe the last 5 years in particular there's been some rocky points. So I think as has been documented not only by our current CEO, who um, I think has reflected on some of the strategic choices that were made with Linden Lab and the education community. What's been publicly said, and I agree with as an educator and as somebody at Linden Lab, is that probably the removal, and I think it was fall of 2010 or so, of the education discount probably was something that has been reflected on. And that has been restored, right? So that I
Hmm.
think was something that put a bit of a kink, shall we say, in sort of the momentum of the education community with Linden Lab and Second Life. As an educator myself, I will disclose, and actually Drax knows this too, because we actually collaborated in 2009, 2010
2009,
on,
yes.
yeah, on an in-world, and this was me on behalf of my education presence, not as a Linden Lab person, but we actually did an in-world summit with a major university where there was actually a real-world in-world hybrid sort of mixed reality event with a lot of pretty well-known folks. Drax participated in person on campus as well. So that was an example of something right before that discount was removed, where there was a lot of momentum and interest and experimentation of all sorts of educational experiences and learning experiences that happened to be one of a very high-profile nature that we both had the blessing to experience. I think another issue that's consistently been a challenge has been historically, at least, Second Life itself. Obviously, there's, if you go back 5, 10 years ago, the processing power of computers would have been a little bit of a challenge for a lot of education environments that may or may not have been, well suited for it. But technology's gotten better. The hardware's gotten faster. I think that Linden Lab has had an awakening and a better understanding now more than ever of the educator community, with that discount being restored, for example. It's tough for me because I personally, at my role at Linden Lab, I don't represent the education community, so I'm sort of speaking more as an educator
Sure.
in saying that. But obviously having an inside track, I think those are things that have been well documented on it.
I,
So
I
that's
could
my 2 cents.
I would jump in here real quick and maybe I'll get some hate mail for it, but I'm quite frank with another reason why maybe it didn't really totally take off, and that is to me that some educational projects, while well-meaning and done by very dedicated educators, were frankly not really taking advantage of the unique affordances that Second Life presents. So some, and I spoke at the International Society for Technology Education couple weeks ago, and told them the exact same thing. Oftentimes, I would run across educational projects, and they look very, very basic. And you guys at Linden Lab have added features over the years, the interactive features, the experience keys, and so on and so forth. And they're amazing. And I don't fault the educators. They are under pressure to deliver fast. They don't have a lot of time, and sometimes they may not be able to acquire the skills that are needed to create some of these experiences in Second Life. So oftentimes they just replicate the classroom, and I find that is probably not the best idea to to engage, especially young students when they have so much more, or they're used to so much more interactivity. So for me, I'm constantly looking for educational products to profile in the Draxfile series, and I find interesting things, but then there's really not that much sort of meat to go on. And I would love for some of the top builders in SL, the Mad P's or Loki Elliott, people who create interactive stuff, and it seems like the day Linden Lab comes out with a new feature, the 2 days later Loki has something that implements that feature. In terms of what's available, also with code, to kind of link those up with educators who want to take full advantage of what Second Life has to offer.
I think you're right. The one of the faults of the project that I was a part of some years ago, we tried to build a writing center on our Second Life campus, and the problem was we had the design process was very slow. That we had to do user testing, we had to analyze that testing for design purposes, then we had to go back and revamp the design, and then do more user testing, and it was a very slow process. But it was a process rooted in, I guess, academic thought as opposed to, I guess, creative processes, which is, something I think, not to bash my own kind in the academic world, but something that sometimes that piece of the puzzle is kind of missing.
Yeah.
And
But I got to tell
be...
you, for example, Nathan, you are the best looking educator I've seen in Second Life in a long time. And what I mean by that is that, what I mean by that, if you want to engage students and you say, oh, this is a wonderful world, and then you look like an avatar from 2005, I don't know what kind of message that sends, in terms of like you're selling something to your students that is amazing and you could do everything you want, and then you still have sort of the duck walk on. I mean, that's also what I'm talking about. You gotta bring people in with enthusiasm. I'm not saying it's easy. I have the luxury of sitting behind my my camera and just observe this stuff. There are challenges, but I think they can be overcome. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I am naturally good looking. That's
I assumed as much.
It's just the way it is. Okay, so I would like to move on to talk a little bit about Sansa, if that's okay. Is there anything that can be shared about Sansa right now that you think could reinvigorate the lost and future educators, interested in working inside virtual worlds? Or is there anything you can project about what education might look like inside Project Sansa?
I can start on that. So Project Sansar is, I'll be upfront in saying I'm not authorized to say too much about Project Sansar, except what I can do is restate and or emphasize some of the things that our current CEO, Ebe, has said publicly. For example, a recent Virtual Worlds in Education conference, he actually addressed a lot of specifics about Sansar. One thing I'll say straight off the bat, what has been publicly stated is that this is something being developed in multiple platforms, so Windows PCs, for Oculus and Vive. That's been stated publicly. Also, potentially further down the line, we're looking at mobile devices, so Android OS, etc. I can't get into the nitty-gritty of that, but that's, as a sort of a foundational approach as to where and how it would be accessed or available. It's also been stated that there is intention is to have support for third-party tools, building tools like Maya and Blender and that kind of stuff. So those are some things that the community can look forward to as far as the platform and how it might work. But I will say also the idea that you can have a great deal of control over how the user experiences your specific creations, things like who gets access, what the privacy controls are. I think it's going to be great for education. As an educator myself, I know, again, even outside of my duties at Linden Lab, I can't wait to get my hands on it with the institute that I work with to, put it to its full test. things like I'm trying to think of things I can say. And they're not necessarily. It's tough for me because I'm not. Again, I'm not the designated spokesperson for Project Sandstar, but obviously I have insight to it, and I'm excited about it. I can share that. I'm trying to think of things I can say. Just imagine real-time collaborative experiences or simulations that maybe better leverage the sense of presence that you would get, say, with a headset-based experience or VR-based experience. Maybe that, from an educator point of view, helps to establish a stronger sense of understanding, empathy, emotion for just the participants and the environments, or maybe even scripted characters. And even outside of Sandstar in VR as a general rule, we're seeing this already at play in some of the independently developed VR experiences. If anyone in the audience has experienced or played around with the Oculus or Vive, early education uh, developed platforms that are systems that are out there, like Apollo 11, the simulation is amazing. Gives you a whole different understanding of what that was like, rather than reading a textbook, sitting in the seat as you get launched off into space. It's phenomenal, and just having experienced that was one of those sort of wow moments that I had. There's one that's not been talked about that I loved from the earliest days. Again, this is not Sansar, but just in general about VR and education, called From Ashes, which was in the Oculus Share program. That was really phenomenal. Sort of a science thing. So those are the kinds of things, thinking about what the creative community is already coming up with, out there with what's there. The fact that there's going to be this platform that sort of addresses some of the learnings from Second Life. Although it's not Second Life, it's definitely its own thing. It's not. I personally would say it's not SL 2.0. I don't think we're presenting it that way. But the fact that you can do these amazing things that take advantage of the technology is pretty exciting. Yeah.
I was just gonna jump in as the surrogate CEO, not even employed by you guys, but Sansar is not SL 2.0, and I just wanted to say also my own opinion, not only based on what I've seen, but also what I talked with Ebbe about. Sansar is certainly exciting. We did a podcast a year ago called Sansar Anxiety, where we where we addressed sort of the panic of, oh, SL is closing, they're closing, and everybody's moving to Sansar.
Right.
And I can tell you personally, after I've seen Sansar and how and admittedly, I'm enthusiastic about Second Life, but I really don't think that Sansar will make SL obsolete. Also, other VR applications that are out there, other worlds, and incidentally, tomorrow I'm invited to a VR talk show called Gunter's Universe, hosted by Gunter S. Thompson, and that's in a program called VR Chat that is fully immersive with the HTC Vive headset or the Oculus, both of which are together with the PC, cost probably around the whole package $3,000. So you know where I'm gonna get it. SL right now is nowhere near obsolete. It's a functioning system, um, and it is unique in its affordances, and the stuff works. I just did a story about nonprofit commons, and the gist was that the accessibility of SL without anything else is just sort of the biggest selling point for them. I asked every one of these guys from the nonprofit comments, so how about VR? Are you guys getting headsets and stuff like that? These are small nonprofits. They said, no, we can't afford headset. We can't afford the development stuff. We can't learn Unity right now. Um, and reason after reason why they're not hopping on the VR train yet. But then circling back around to finish my point, I'm not opposed to more immersion at all, and I think Linden Lab is probably the most qualified player on in this whole ecosystem to create a VR virtual world, or a virtual world that is compatible with virtual reality gear, um, better equipped than anyone out there to make it really good, because they have so much expertise with Second Life, and by that expertise, I don't mean necessarily running an economy and helping people to monetize, but also how to deal with a really crazy diverse community. Because I think a lot of these other players that are coming online, I go to all these VR conferences, I think they have no clue about the chaos that might ensue when you just have sort of an open world that is beautiful, but also, well, chaotic. And how do you deal with things like governance and stuff like that. So I'm going all over the place. Let me wrap it up by saying that Sanser, I don't think. I think Sanser is exciting, but I think it will have certain things. It won't have certain things that SL residents really really cherish. And I don't know how that plays out. Maybe you're not gonna miss it. Maybe you're gonna do both things. But SL is going nowhere. I don't think so.
Perfect. You know,
Oh, I
I
want to say
think.
one more thing real quick. So anybody who has tried an HTC Vive or an Oculus, and then on the lower end level a Gear VR maybe or cardboard goggles, knows that it is exciting um, to be more immersed. And Second Life, while the Oculus viewer has been pulled by Linden Lab, there is a way to interface a Second Life with a virtual reality with a head-mounted display, and that's a Vorpix. That's vorpx.com, and that streams it into your headset. So a lot of people have used it. I tried it yesterday, and I think it works really great. And I
Hmm,
would recommend that to people who have a headset, just because when they have a relationship to their avatar, it's absolutely amazing to have that added immersion. Having said that, I don't think gluing two TVs in front of your eyes and shutting out the surroundings is the clue to immersion. So I would caution the enthusiasm, of all these new VR people, like, oh my God, this is going to be huge, because I think there's more to it. We have all experienced that we are attached to our avatars. Why are we attached to our avatars? Why are the avatars our digital alter egos? Because we can we can shape them. We can shape them inside the world. And that's a piece that's missing with a lot of experiences. I totally agree with Brett. A lot of the stuff, there's also universe building VR experience. I've seen the stuff at Sundance. It's really really amazing, but there's a big piece missing, and I guess the circling back around Linden Lab is kind of closing that hole by creating a world where you can express yourself more. Okay, I talk too much.
yeah.
Cut me off,
No, I
Dave.
love it. Yeah. So, the important point there, I think, that you're making is that immersion is important, but it's not just censored. It's
Exactly.
experiential too.
Exactly. That's
So
Thank you for summarizing my long-winded thing in a very coherent way. That's
that's
exactly
why they
right.
call me the moderator. Yes. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, somebody asked in the watch SL on Streams on Cardboard. There's Trinos VR. I'll just put that in the chat. I'm reading the chat here. Sorry.
let's see here. Can you do 3D? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know the answer to this, but if somebody does, please jump in. Um, while we're kind of like multitasking in chat here as well, we can move on to the next question. And I think it's a nice segue from the previous one, and you know I'm wondering, in terms of learning things in Second Life. I'm part of a few groups that meet regularly, and we do a lot of talking about education, and we learn a lot of things. We go see plays and things. But what kinds of lessons do you think people can learn from being in Second Life, but then maybe can transfer out into the real world? So a lot of people talk about the real world impacting Second Life, but I would like to imagine that the reverse is true, that Second Life can impact the real world too. So do you have any thoughts about that in terms of learning?
Brett? Me?
Uh, yeah. Do you care which of us goes first, or
No, not at all.
Drax? You want to go first on this one?
How does Second Life impact real life in terms of learning? I would argue, I mean, in a way, that's the subtext of every one of those 270 machinima. I just count. Actually, my YouTube channel says I have made 270 little machinimas, and I think that's the subtext of each one of them. That what we experience here is uh, totally reverberant in real life. And correct me, Nathan, if I'm going the wrong direction. The last story was about Ebony Khan, who makes shoes in Second Life, and I sort of set up the story a little bit, like, hey, Ebony, isn't this all escapism, people dressing up and playing the Kardashians, what kind of BS is that? And so we set it up that way, and then it goes deeper. And she says towards the end that SL made her more tolerant. So every one of those
Exactly.
5 minute videos is based on a long conversation. Uh, um, Probably because Brett taught me about journalism. I should have studied with
Oh
Brett.
Lord, come on.
No, no, but Brett, this is the old school. We talked about this before. I mean, I have the luxury to take the time to talk. Sometimes I don't know anything about these people, and then I talk to them at length. And so Ebony's point was that SL made her more tolerant towards other people, and she specifically, and that's not really in the piece. I cut it out for time, but I think it comes across. She comes from a professional background, right? So everybody is has sort of a degree from some sort of college, and she admitted that she was looking down on people who haven't gone to college. That was her thing.
Mm.
And then in SL she was exposed to people who come from very diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, and she was surprised to find herself in conversations where she put it, that's the way she put it, basically a world, people who seem world, I forget now, but worldly, is that the right term? But basically, sort of have an opinion, and they can voice it. Um, so that's what we talked about in the interview, and that's just one example of, has nothing to do with education per se, or formalized education. It's just the education on the ground. She is a business person. One could argue, maybe if she would have opened a shoe store in the corner in her town, maybe she'd had the same experience. I would argue no, because she would be
Yeah,
in a
no,
certain part of town, and we all know about, we are basically segregated now along the lines of socioeconomic sort of divisions. And again, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that SL is maybe not as accessible as it should be, because broadband alone costs a lot of money, and you have to have a machine and all that kind of stuff. But it's more through avatar representation. It's just you just get into conversations easier. You break down these barriers, and that is in essence incredibly educational.
that's
And
wonderful. You
I think a lot of that's due to the sense of presence you get when you're in real time interacting with people. There's that, as an educator, I've noticed with students that it can help, say, with retention of information, because you have a memory that's formed, almost like a quote. I hate using this analogy, but like a quote unquote real life interchange or a non virtual world exchange. And so I think that helps with connectedness, empathy to other people, to the subject matter that maybe is the lesson that you're, or experience that you're in. A great example, this is one that's been around like forever in Second Life, but if anyone here has seen, I think it's UC Davis did the virtual I can't say it, hallucinations experience, where you
Right.
basically go through and you experience almost like what it's like to have some of the symptoms of schizophrenia. You
Right.
hear
That
voices
yeah,
video,
and so
there's the
forth.
video still on YouTube.
Yeah,
I think about that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it may still be around. It's been since the very, very beginnings of the Destination Guide, so I mean years and years. But that's really an amazing thing to go through, and to sort of step in the shoes of somebody who might be inflicted with that, and to know and have empathy for what that's like, rather than just sort of some textbook definition of it. And so I think that's a very unique attribute of Second Life and these kinds of experiences, that's really quite powerful.
And again, this is again something that is dismissed. That drives me personally a little bit nuts when I go to these VR conferences. Uh, that this is so dismissed. That this is basically not possible. So some, not everybody, but a lot of people, and I think primarily this has economic reasons, because people want to sell headsets, and people want to primarily sell products. So they basically say, no, 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 that's not possible with something like Second Life, because there is the screen in between, and you're not really immersed, so you don't really, you can't have that retention and blah blah blah. I mean, it's akin to saying maybe your car, you have to buy a new car because the old car. Anyway, uh, I'm going off a tangent, but basically, Brett, this is one of the examples, and there's many others. educators using a volcano or having a lesson inside a volcano, the volcano erupts or whatever. Um, yeah, the HTC Vive, the headsets, the head-mounted display, tactile experiences, data gloves, omnidirectional treadmills will all add to this stuff. But it's not to dismiss our world along those lines that it's not possible. That's just ridiculous.
There was a very good point in the chat by Ora Fitzgerald who said that any everyday interaction in Second Life can be a valuable learning interaction, and I think that's a
Yeah.
very very good point to make. From my own
Well, if you're open.
experience,
Yeah.
yes,
If you just stay on your sim, you can be you can be the total hermit. Everything is possible.
the one of the I think one of the I guess hurdles that I originally saw with students working with second is that there was the learning curve of learning the technology, especially if they weren't familiar with it. But over the long run, what I found is that the fact that they had to slow down and take their time
Yes.
with a technology, as opposed to it being more quote unquote efficient, you know, uh, was something that turned out to be a benefit. They were forced to stop and slow down and think and appreciate. And I found that that's something that people usually export out into other kinds of work
Oh,
that they might do that that I found was kind of nice.
that's an incredibly
Um,
good point. That's an incredibly good point because I think more and more, and thankfully in the public discussion we have that more and more, is that the digital realm is has this allure. And I really, this reminds me of Charlie Chaplin Modern Times, where the speed, the possibility that the machines can add more speed, really, is not very good when it comes to uh, worker and superior relations between the in that movie between the worker and the owner of the factory. But you're so right. I think actually I worked with an autistic illustrator once, and she said the fact that she doesn't have to speak here, that it's fully accepted that you communicate with text only, is very powerful because then people already they don't expect you to fire off an answer right away, and that really helps her a lot to take part in a conversation. Because if it's just voice, the person who is quick-witted and quick on the draw is sometimes dominating the conversation. Case in point, what's
exactly.
happening right now. I'm gonna shut up.
Oh, Drax, you kid.
I keyed. I
Uh,
keyed.
Okay, following along the lines of something similar, then, um, in the world of online learning and online education, online learning is often marketed as a kind of like a neoliberal kind of thing. It's often classified using words like efficient or less time consuming, and
Yeah.
this is sometimes criticized as being a perception that education is a commodity, something that can just simply be purchased rather than something that needs to be connected with humans.
Yes.
And I've always
Exactly.
thought that Second Life can directly combat that.
Exactly.
And I was wondering if there was some, I guess, some sort of camaraderie in that feeling, or if I'm alone.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry.
a lot of my students will take my online courses because they think they're quote unquote easier, because they're online, which is definitely not the case. So I guess how can Second Life combat that stigma of a
Hmm.
neoliberal education?
I'll answer that because I do also teach online, so I have a lot of actually at least a decade now of teaching online classes. And I'll be honest with you, and this is me speaking as an educator. It's been very frustrating, as I think sort of your question suggests, that we've seen this movement in a lot of the academic sector, higher education, where students are viewed as customers and education is a commodity. So and even there's this economic model of quote unquote butts in seats. So there's the pay of the faculty or the staff, for example, or adjunct in many cases, is tied to how many people enroll. And you see in the U.S. at least, I'm sure there's a global folks in the audience here, but in the U.S. we see a lot of aggressive advertising of for-profit model education outlets. I won't name them, but I think some of them are pretty obvious. So it's really Interesting to see what's happened to that sector. With that said, I think there is some room for um, some positive things that are happening in terms of virtual worlds and VR platforms, in the sense that what we talked about earlier, the fact that you can have learning environments and experiences that are really more robust and alive, simultaneous communication rather than sort of distant. The sense of distance is removed perhaps when you have those classes, having taught in Second Life and those kinds of experiences. It's just a different kind of camaraderie with your students that can be created if it's done well. So optimistically, I think there's a lot of excitement as far as the possibilities there. Obviously, some hurdles in the education sector as well. But the online education model, in what I have seen, can be very, very profitable for those institutes. As distasteful as that sounds for people that view academia as not business related, but it can be very profitable. So maybe, hopefully, some of the education outlets will use some of those resources and those profits in a way to sort of explore any of these platforms, really, and virtual worlds. That's my 2 cents. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I think it's great. I
Okay, here's
appreciate it.
and as I'm not an educator, I have to speak from my personal opinion. Sometimes I joke on the podcast that I'm a communist, but that's just to get Simoni, who's a libertarian who I respect, to comment for 3 pages, and then I can comment back. Um, I think it's very simple. We have to. I mean, this is my personal opinion. I think this goes back to what we said earlier. There is this allure to automate things, right? So my son was, they had all this math automation, and companies push down. These companies make millions and millions. They push down sort of a solution that cash-strapped school districts, we're talking about middle school, are eating up. They go like, hey, we can, you know, test. We're talking about testing software and math drilling with a timer, and everything is evaluated and all the data is accessible and stuff like that. And it's primarily, and this is the way I see it, this is primarily to save money, so they don't have to hire people. The beauty of Second Life, and unfortunately also, again, the irony is that Second Life is being sort of dismissed by a lot of people in that same sort of realm. Administrators, and I've seen it with my own 2 eyes in California. Often, they would purchase or make deals where they shell out millions of dollars. They're getting in through a local ballot measure, and at the same time dismiss virtual worlds, including Second Life. Second Life, the beauty when you're talking about this neoliberal concept of or the portion that I find problematic is sort of this saving money by basically cutting down on human resources, and automating everything. And Second Life is the antidote to that, because it's still person to person. It's just by means of the avatar, but it's a one-on-one, real time sense of place, sense of belonging, conversation, and not me and an automated little thing, and the data gets sent to some company. And that's the beauty
Right.
of Second Life. But again, in my own personal experience, being this cheerleader, running around sort of telling people about this, eye rolling, and no end. And I don't understand that. So I hope that with VR headsets proliferating and maybe coming down in price, and Project Sansar and other places, that we do not forget that these digital experiences can only really work if we at the same time invest in education and investing in human resources, and having real human beings side by side, the student, in any situation. I'm horrified, as much as I embrace um, the digital worlds and all sorts of things. I'm horrified by a vision. We just read Rainbow's End in the Draxtor book club. I'm horrified by some of the. I recommend it. I'm not going to summarize the plot right now, but there's any number of dystopian novels that, incidentally, some of the leaders of the new VR movement don't see as dystopian at all. Ready
Hmm.
Player One is to me is a dystopia, is an awesome book, but it's also dystopian when we talk about education. Uh,
It is.
the founder and CEO of Oculus thinks this is awesome, and we should totally go there. and you know that's freaking scary, frankly. So,
Drax, I'd like to turn to you for kind of the second part of this.
oh, thank you
You've
letting
given
me
us
speak. I have been very quiet. Thank you.
a novel concept, you know. Uh, so you've given us a window into the lives of the people who make Second Life very special. And we've seen people who use Second Life as an extension of their creative abilities. We've seen artists playing with design in space. We've seen wonderful folks confronting social injustices and doing social good. We've seen musicians who find a way to play for new audiences within the virtual worlds. So, but most here, and I want you and I want to know more about you. I want to know more about how you put together these stories and why you think they're important to tell. So I have a series of questions for you that hopefully you can kind of shed some light on. And Brett, of course, please chime in when you feel the need. And if you want to talk over Drax, that would be great.
Please do. Oh, I see. I see.
You got it.
uh, so so let's start here. You know, I'm a really big fan of your video series, Draxter Files. And I'm really just curious, how did you even come up with the idea to start the series? What happened?
Okay, I'll try to be very brief, which is interesting. Maybe the brevity is only I'm only capable of doing it within the series. No, but I started Machinima 2 months after I joined Second Life in February 2007, simply because I saw this world as so fascinating. I needed to make sense of it, and then somebody told me, "Hey, you can just capture the screen." And I just quit my job at a local public radio NPR affiliate station in California, a small station, to be at home with my son. And I took those skills of making those sort of radio reportages and then just added the machinima. So I did that for a while, and the first, I don't know, few years, the stuff I can't even look at. It's so crude because I had no idea how to do machinima or capture the screen or any of the video part of it. I also work in audio and I write music for film, so I work in the audio department, but the visual is completely self-taught inside Second Life. So fast forward, we did with Pookie Amsterdam, also a noted machinima maker. We did a comedy series called Fluffy on a Mission, and then my friend Chris Lehman told me in 2013, "Hey Drax, why don't you do stuff, like news-related Second Life stuff, because nobody's doing it." And I said, "Well, yeah, that would be good. I mean, it would be good to kind of profile people." And by that time, I realized what is really connecting with folks is showing showing people who are uninitiated and don't understand Second Life that there's a physical person behind the avatar. That's something that is so a no-brainer for us. But most people, when you show them anything, they go like, "Oh, what's these non?" Basically, what are these non-player characters? Why are you showing me an hour of non-player characters, doing weird things? I said, no, these are real people and blah blah blah. So that's how the format was born. And the first episode was about Chris Lehman, who makes plants and trees, and yeah, he really brought me back because at that time I wanted to do a really crazy 50 episode sci-fi mystery machinima series, a mixture of Lost and The Twilight Zone. And that might have tanked. No, that might have been very cool, but it might also been arguably more niche. And
I would have loved it. Yeah.
damn it. But it's, and then it really, I understand, this first, I've done so many machinimas, and I harassed my friends and family so that people cross the streets not to talk to me about Second Life. But then when this Chris episode came out, then Joe Yardley episode 2 and Eshi episode 3, people who normally would ignore me when I sent them an email or look at this video, they would respond and say, "Wow, now I get it. Now I get it." And so yeah, I kind of refined this format, and I'm still doing it. It's very labor intensive. Let me wrap up my answer to your question by saying that I do at least 2 hour conversation up front with the protagonist of the episode. A lot of people assume that basically I sort of, design this episode and then I tell people, here's a bunch of sound bites that total 2 minutes and slap some music on and then film a little bit of stuff. Not at all.
You know,
It's a long
um,
process going through raw audio and whittling it down to the essence. And it could be a completely different story if the raw audio would be presented by someone else. I mean, I think this would be actually a really cool exercise for a journalism school or whatever. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, what's interesting to me is when I watch the episodes, they look. I mean, they you make them look very seamless and like it's a simple task, but boy, you can really tell the way you integrate, video footage. What's I'm at a loss for the right words here. Footage from Second Life
Yeah,
with
that's
footage
machinima.
from
That's
real
right.
life.
Right.
Yeah. So the way you integrate those things together, I mean, it is one of the most impressive things I think I've seen. It's and I guess
Thank you.
that kind of leads me to the next question, which
But
is
I wanna
you
I wanna
mentioned.
very quickly thank you very much for these are really kind words because again I'm self-taught in the video department. I need to stress though that the way I approach it is that the audio alone without any visuals is so tight and compelling that it could run on Morning Edition or any number of other morning programs, and that the visuals would be so that the pacing is really tight. That's how I approach it, and then I start thinking about how do we do these visuals, and it's extremely challenging because most of them I don't film myself, so I have to direct this remotely and communicate with people who sometimes have never really thought about continuity or anything. Um, so it's very challenging, especially for someone who is maybe a little. I'm not a control freak, but I like to. I have some anxiety, of course, when I hand over that cinematography task to somebody. Yeah.
I think anyone who makes good stuff is going to be a little anxious about it. So that's
Yeah.
okay. You're allowed to feel anxious about your good work. So you've talked a little bit about the process of making each video then, but is there anything you want to add about how you go about actually creating the videos?
Yeah, it just occurred to me that we had an episode 21 of Virtual Health Adventures with amputees and Sandra Winkler, who worked out of Florida, rehabilitating those amputees. This is just a little tiny anecdote, and there was a guy who lost his legs. He was in his mid 60s, his wife as well, and I needed to film them. They didn't have anybody available to film them. And again, we have to coordinate what they see on the screen in Second Life. So once I have an idea how the pacing is, how the flow is, I will film Second Life footage. Um, but then the real life has to match in continuity. So we reenact some of the stuff that happens in Second Life. That stuff is not filmed at the same time. So let's say I film uh, this conversation that we're having right now in Second Life, and I capture the screen, and I would like to have you guys splice that in real life. I would have to tell you, you have to kind of reenact that um, while filming yourself over the shoulder in real life, but you have to sit in the same spot. We have to you have to do similar things so that the continuity is correct. And with the wife of the amputee, she had never filmed anything, so we were figuring out how do we do this. um, so we had a FaceTime connection, a video connection, where I saw they cramped the iPad in the corner with FaceTime. I saw what she was seeing roughly with her iPhone, with which she was filming her husband, and so I was basically remotely directing with a very shoddy
Wow.
connection, like, go over there, no, 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 stay longer here, and telling him, please move your head to the left, and or move your avatar. And that is extremely challenging. Now, this is just one challenge. The other challenge is time zones. People always in multiple time zones. Another challenge is when you work with lindens. I'm just kidding, Brett. I'm sorry. There was an episode with a lot of lindens in it. No, no, no. I mean, the more people that are in there, it has to be coordinated. So there's a lot of logistics. When do people people work full time jobs? You can't just I could knock this stuff out in probably 40 hours from beginning to end, right? Um, but I can't because I have to work with what people's availability. Also, we built sets. Marianne McCann, who many people know, is amazing. Um, she's building sets with me. We have meetings, and then I talk. How do we visualize stuff? Another challenge is, of course, when people talk about the past. The upcoming episode on Friday is about an Italian game guy, a game designer, Sergio de la Cruz, and he talks about, and I found that important to integrate into the episode. He talks about how he got started, how he had no idea what he was doing, and he went to a sandbox in 2008. So, Marianne and I were talking like, well, how do we do this? We basically got to recreate 2008. So we looked up photos and we recreated a 2008 sandbox, and we're basically going in this episode, which will come out on Friday. You will see we go from very polished today's Second Life, a very polished, fast-paced horror game, to boom, we're in 2008, and it's
That's
the chaos of
beautiful.
the sandbox. So it also serves, whatever people, this is my last sentence on this. Um, for archival purposes, to look back on whatever will happen with Second Life, whatever will happen with virtual reality. Will we have contact lenses in 5 years? And I don't know. We can look back on, I think, important, significant steps in the direction of digital worlds. Yeah. And
That's
Torley,
wonderful.
by the way,
Thank you.
Torley's in the audience. Torley helped with the Linden Lab episode. We were both filming. This was also first. It was amazing. Torley and I were both filming the machinima to have more angles and to have more stuff to choose from. I was gonna say we filmed for these 5 episodes, 5-minute episodes, 3 to 5 minutes long. We film easily, I don't know, maybe a couple hours of raw footage of Second Life alone. That's not counting the real life stuff. So, but that's not unusual for documentary.
So then, as you're talking about this, and I can just tell you're incredibly like proud of what you do, which is great. So can you kind of talk about how creating these videos has benefited you? I know it's benefited the people you've
Yeah.
profiled, but
Uh,
what about you?
so I am proud of I really want to say this because people always say, "Oh, this is so great. This is so great." The I gotta tell you, the fact that I can give back and give this community that is in many ways, frankly, marginalized as a whole, because people dismiss it left and right, is such a thrill for me. And when I get an IM or an email where somebody says, "Hey, I was actually embarrassed of admitting to my friends that I play Second Life, play quote unquote, because people always making fun of it, so I stopped talking about it. But since you've started doing this series, I can now point towards this, and to my family and friends who make fun of me, that no, this is actually a wonderful world. This is the biggest motivator for me doing this. You're asking about benefiting. The benefit is that I am learning and honing skills. I don't get a lot of follow up work, frankly. If we're talking about the economics of it, there is a little sponsorship uh, that is documented. It was documented that Linden Lab is sponsoring the series. Um, Without naming numbers, I would say this is about 20% of what any video editor or guy who does these kind of things would charge for an episode, and that's totally fine. I just want to put that into perspective because some people have said, "Oh, he gets paid the big bucks by Linden Lab." No, this is still a labor of love, and the money that I get from Linden Lab, of course, helps it to legitimize it to my family, and say so I can say to my
Sure.
wife, I'm not, what do you want me to do? I mean, I could be spending money at the golf club, which I wouldn't because I don't like golf. But the point is benefiting. It has benefited me with personal growth first and foremost, and skills that are transferable. these skills are definitely transferable in terms of storytelling and video editing. That is true.
It's great to hear that. And it's clear just talking to you that you're
But I gotta tell
you
you, I'm
know
sorry, when I hear benefit, then always in the content, and I'm thinking like of economic benefit. I gotta tell you, when I sometimes interview people, or there's a story coming up with a well-known Dutch creator, how much money some of these top creators make, I sometimes think like, I'm not motivated by money, to tell you the truth. Not in real life, nor in Second Life. I have other motive. I have to survive like everybody else, but my motivations lie elsewhere. At the same time, when I hear what some of these content creators make, it's like, oh my God, I'm in the wrong business. I work my butt
yeah.
off. I can't sleep. Uh, people call me, oh, I can't film this. Oh, I can't do it. And then people midway through get to like, oh, I don't know if I want to be seen in real life. That kind of thing. I already put in 20, 30 hours, and they go like, no, I can't. You know what? I don't want to do it. And I go, oh my God. It's. Uh, yeah. In my next life, I'm
Let
gonna be
me
a content creator
Yes, and
for
and you're gonna
shoes.
make the best the best shoes ever by Drax. Uh, so can you kind of talk about then why do you think it's important or why do you think it's necessary to tie in the real life person to the avatar? Because you just kind
Yeah,
of mentioned some people might be hesitant to appear on camera, but you seem to make that a very strong theme in your videos.
that is absolutely essential for this format. And let me also say, and I said this before, that I don't want to drag people in front of the camera who don't want to. To me, the fact that we can be not anonymous, but we can have pseudonyms and we can have digital alter egos is enormously powerful. My series really does. I don't want to make the point that we have to be sort of like Facebook. I despise that concept, frankly. I am on Facebook myself. It works for me, but it doesn't work for a lot of people who are shut out by that crazy concept of real name policy. We can get into that too. Um, this series, my series works with this format. It requires the real life, Second Life connection because I want to explain to the outsiders how this um, works. I want to quote unquote normalize. Is normalize a good word? Uh, Again, I found that a lot of people dismiss Second Life on the grounds that it's not real and it's just all cartoon people. And when people see that there is a connection with the real personality, uh, okay, Ziola's. I'm so self-conscious. Ziola is implying that I talk too much. Brett, you say something. You,
It's fine. But go ahead and finish your thought,
Ziola
please.
is always on my case. I'm never gonna. I visited her in real life. I'm never gonna do that again. No. Uh, yeah, it's the real life, the physical person avatar connection is enormously powerful to uh, to show people how this works, but also that the avatar is an important part of navigating the world, and we cannot just have sort of disembodied hands. I know it's early days in VR. I'm going back. I don't want to knock it. Leap motion is great, hand tracking, but floating hands is not shouldn't be the goal. It's
Right.
ridiculous.
And
I have
I was just going to summarize something just for Drax specifically, just really personally, and then also obviously as somebody at Linden Lab, really thank you for your amazing stories that you're telling and really shedding light on the personal stories behind the avatars. Just personally, I really enjoy them, and it's been nice to see the evolution of those over the many, many, many episodes that you've done. So I just want to acknowledge that as being something that I thought was very powerful and impactful.
I think it's important for Linden Lab to, and they're doing it, and I'm glad that Ebbe is has this personality of bringing this across also as the major spokesperson. How important diversity is also. That's another point that I've grown myself. I mean, I profiled people that frankly I had my sort of elitist little thoughts about the fashion industry, to be quite frank. Um, but I changed my opinion by just looking at them and documenting them and really going deep. And that diversity is incredibly important.
um I'd like to
this is what I wanted to say. A lot of people actually decline to be profiled because they don't want to have that connection, that real life second life connection, which is important for this particular format. There are many other formats, but like I said, I settled for this format because it has the most. It just works, and so I don't want to drag any. It's always regrettable when people don't want to be profiled. But again, I respect this so highly. It's one of the most important features, and I hope that Linden Lab going forward with Project Sansar will afford people this pseudonymity that we have here. I think it's so important, and there's a battle that's been going on for a long time. And Zuckerberg and the like, they have a vested interest with the real name policy, and they try to sell it as the way to clean up online communication. I think that's a very simplistic viewpoint that is arguably motivated by economic gain. Wow, that was pretty concise for me. Thank you.
yeah, that was great.
I'm getting
I was
better, Nathan. That's you moderating. It's, yeah.
it's I don't know. I could listen to you talk all day, to be honest. What I'd like to do is
Oh my
actually
God, I'm
open.
gonna get a divorce. So go ahead.
You have an open invitation to talk my ear off anytime. um,
Oble.
what I'd like what I'd like to do is open questions up to the people with us today. So if anyone out there has questions for the panel, go ahead and type it into chat, and maybe we'll get some questions from Brett and Drax. Does anybody have anything they'd like to know? Otherwise, we're about done. Let's see.
People are typing.
People are typing. I hear it. That old familiar sound.
That was something in the very beginning when voice was not in the. I always put in the typing sound to signal that people were communicating.
Yes. Questions.
I want to know what the real essence of allowing alts in Second Life.
What's the meaning of Second Life? That's what the.
Ah. I see a question here about alts, but I'm not sure. Maybe she could rephrase that, what that really means, the essence of allowing alts in Second Life. I don't know if that's implying that Linden Lab shouldn't allow alts. What do you think, Brad, about alts? I mean, that's a
Yeah, I'm
double-edged
not.
sword. It's a
Yeah,
complex.
I don't.
Yeah.
I would need to understand the question better, but I'll make a general statement, which is from my own experience, I love the fact that you can have multiple identities and experiment with different, ways of life, gender, sexual identity, whatever it might be. There's lots of things you can explore safely in Second Life that people may not have the ability to do, and because of cultural restrictions or whatever it might be in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the essence of the question, but I would just say as a general statement, I think that's one of the secret sauces to, part of the secret formula is why SL's been so successful.
Absolutely.
So it's great.
I think that's what she's saying. She says having alts have multiple personality. I did 2010 a video called Kansas to Cairo, where we profiled Egyptian students who were meeting up with students from USC, and they did an architecture project, and it was all in SL. And the Egyptian students, it was really fascinating. Some of them wore traditional clothing, and two women wore a headscarf, and in SL, the one woman, um, she had different hair in SL every day, and and that was amazing, and then that was totally fine. And she said, I can experiment. And she didn't. The way she described it to me was that she didn't feel restricted with the headscarf. She likes the headscarf. It's part of her identity. Nobody forces her to do it. It's a very strong woman. Um, but in SL, she just played around with the possibilities. So that's just one example. Oblis says, my
Andrew,
alts go to my concerts and throw beer bottles at me to elicit sympathy from the audience. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Oble.
I'll come. So,
Oble, for example, one I did an Oble episode, of course, and one thing that ended up on the cutting room floor. I don't know if we put it in, but it was really funny. And I asked Oble, so what about? This is a standard question I ask everyone. What is the relationship with your friends and family when you talk to them about Second Life? Are they tired of hearing about it or whatever, or is anybody interested? And I think Oblis said, like, when he tells people that there's actual money exchanging hands, like, I think his quote was, "If you tell a musician who would play for $1 an hour at some bar with two drunks, that the money that he makes from his home in his pajamas by playing for a Japanese audience at 6 in the morning, they start to listen." So yeah,
um,
Oble
so
50.
that about wraps us up. Thank you, Brett and Drax, for participating in the first creative forum here at the festival. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I mean, I can't imagine having two better people to start this off. And thanks for everyone who attended. If you want to stick around and mingle and hang out, feel free. Otherwise, thank you guys very much, and I just really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nathan. It was wonderful, and
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Chris. This was fantastic. Appreciate it.
finally Brett and I on the same stage. It's been 7 years.
If only we had. If you guys want to mud wrestle, there's plenty of space. So.
There you go.
Oh, I'm gonna take.
All right, I have to go teach a class. I will see you guys later, hopefully, and have a great time.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks again.
Bye bye.
I'm gonna take a screenshot from a selfie from the stage.
Oh, it looks like Torley has posted a link to a Flickr feed with a lot of images. That's great. Thank you, Torley.
Thank you, Torley. And Torley, tomorrow, Torley and I will be together at a very secret project that shall not be revealed.
Intriguing.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you guys. No, I won't.
Is it Dr. Phil Part 2? I'm
Ooh,
just kidding.
God, Brett, you're so good. Uh, no, I think Jerry Springer wants to do a reboot or something.
Oh, Lord. Fun.
No, if people, I just have people have had experience with virtual reality goggles in the audience at all, with Google Cardboard or Gear VR or the higher priced items. I was just wondering. Now, when you watch 360 videos on YouTube, which is becoming more and more widespread as cameras are becoming cheaper. Now, imagine what how cool would it be if there were the possibility to do Second Life 360 videos. You just film in Second Life and you put it up on YouTube, and there it is in 360, and um, people can either navigate with the arrow keys, and you can just send that to someone, and they can pop a phone into a Google Cardboard and watch it. Yeah. Oh, Ada, you were talking about this? Evelyn, thank you for inviting us. I'm going to head out. I cannot mingle long because it's late here. I'm in Europe.
What time is it where you're at?
It is 10:09, but I got
Ah,
up so
oh, so it
early.
is late.
Yeah, I mean it depends what your biorhythm says, I guess.
All right. Well, I guess I'll jump off too. Thank you, everybody. It's been great. And if anybody needs to follow up on anything about the education community, you can email me just at Brett at Linden Lab. So BRETT at Linden Lab.
Then Brett, I'll ask you the last question because I'm sorry, I that's the moderator in me. Is is Project Sansar is it Second Life 2.0?
You get how to get me in trouble.
No, it's not. Emma said that many times, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, that I just repeat what he has said, which is they're very, we're not positioning it as that, and it's definitely very different. But yeah, it's all good. Don't get me in trouble, Drax.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna jump out before I say anything that really gets me in trouble.
Yeah,
Thank you again,
I really
everyone.
need. I need to go to bed now. I'm all. It would be fun to. What are the next events? Now I gotta go to bed. And thank you everyone for coming. Thank you. Um, Now they're talking about 360 video. I don't know why. Looking
Guten Nacht, Draxtor.
here. Who is talking? Other Sid. You know what? With the 360 video, isn't that interesting? That 360 videos are so fast proliferating, and and we have this wonderful world that is so hard to communicate. And if we could do machinima of what we do and we put it up on YouTube, and it's crazy that Ada Sid was talking about this, and I don't know why he did
Well,
that.
just the other day, I watched an unboxing on unboxing therapy
Yeah,
in full 360 video, and it
yeah,
was pretty amazing.
yeah.
I was able to watch the scenery while he was talking about the product.
It is really amazing, and that's one of the first. It's like the entry drug into virtual reality, and it bums me out that we can't easily do this right now in SL. Just grab it and then just push it out there. But there may be a way of doing it. There may be a way of doing it.
The first 360 video actually I ever watched was a Bjork video.
Yeah. Yeah, she's also doing. I think she's doing a whole album for the HTC Vive. But unboxing is like competitive tickling, I think. Good night, Torley. Oh, good night.
Good night.
What am I talking about? I gotta go to bed. Thank you everyone for coming.
Would it be in poor taste if I gave everybody a free item?
No, I think that would be the best way to end a great event. If I were to define how a great event should be ended, I would define it by you, Adasid, giving everyone a free item. I mean, that goes without saying. I don't know why I'm even saying it. Right? What is the... SL will still be here tomorrow, Eric. I don't know. So
I literally
optimistic.
just gave everybody in the set a free item, so hope no one yells at me.
I didn't get a free item.
You didn't get it? You didn't
No.
get the balloon sword?
Wait. Uh. Oh, here you go. Oh, balloon sword. Ooh.
You're all welcome.
Okay, I should stop the stream. We're still streaming live on YouTube.